Oh, are we gonna open it?
Oh, we're live.
Huh?
There we go.
Hey,
Hi. What's up, James?
What's
How you
up?
doing, brother?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm actually pretty excited about this. It's been, 3 years since we shot anything together? 2 years?
Arlington of 2018.
Yeah, so 3 years.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
And that was back when, what'd you call it? I think it was the
Joker.
It was the Joker, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, you took quite a bit of footage of that little animal. That was a rough day for me though, because that like 2 weeks before that, I found out my ex-wife had been having an affair, and I did not want to be at that show.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things. It's like, I had the obligation to be there, and it got me away from everything for the weekend. And that animal got a lot of attention that weekend. That was pretty cool. I was the only vendor that show that had any blackhead stuff at all. And I think all my blackhead stuff sold out maybe an hour after VIP ended that Saturday morning. And so I kept that one. He was just there for display. He was a holdback, but he was just to look pretty so everybody could see what that combo looked like. But I wasn't giving the combo up at that time.
Right.
So how did you find out that your wife was cheating on you?
Oh, shit.
Let's just dig in.
Why do we have to go into that?
No,
I've got some stories in this direction too.
Not with me. The previous,
the
trial version wives.
The trial version wives. Over a certain period of time, she started acting different, started doing things that she swore she would never do. Just showed a complete lack of interest. And finally one day I just confronted her about it, because nothing, everything had changed over a 6 or 8 month period. And finally I just asked her one day, and she admitted to it, and then immediately kicked me out of my house. And she had been having an affair for just over a year at that point.
Wow.
So
was it anybody you knew?
No, it was one of her coworkers, and which she was a doctor. So, and I'm not a doctor, so I honestly I can't really say I was too surprised, because her 6-figure salary, she felt like she needed somebody with a 6-figure salary. So,
have you met a ball python breeder?
Right? I mean that year I did pretty damn well that year. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have to have a job that year doing this, but I did, and my salary plus what I made on the animals, I made more than her that year, and but not lucrative enough. I don't have a doctor title or anything like that, and that's she wanted somebody with a title. Is basically what it turned into. So, and then she told me I was a project, and I'm like, well, whatever the hell that means. So, but that was then. This is now. I'm better than ever now.
Good deal.
Awesome.
And as bad as it sucked, I mean, I don't wish divorce on anybody ever. As bad as it was, and as hard as it was, my life is so much better now than it has been ever. And
right.
I had to learn how to be happy with myself. And that was the hard part. And then once I learned how to be happy with myself, so much just fell into place, whether it was the animals, my job, relationships, friendships, and just, when you're happy with yourself, so much just falls into place.
So on Jason's video, you said that your bedroom is like at least twice as big as your reptile room. How come you didn't put your bed in that room and put the reptiles in your bedroom now?
Because I got a king size bed, and I've got a really big armoire and a really big hutch. And I would say my bedroom's actually more along the lines of 4 times the size of my snake room.
Oh wow!
Damn.
I got a really big bedroom. My snake room is an average size. Yeah, I do all this out of my home. Right. I do all this out of my home, so the original, when I bought this house 2 years ago, my daughter's room was actually going to be the snake room because it's bigger than this one, and she was okay with having the smaller room. And then, like, literally as we're moving in, she's like, "No, I want the bigger room." And I was like, "Crap, I already had plans for that room." But you got to keep the kids happy.
Yeah.
And
So
so I'm to the point that I'm fixing to either have to, get a building or put everything in my bedroom and put all my stuff in storage, because I literally have no room left in here. None.
Oh, we've been there.
We are there right now.
Well, we're there again. Yeah.
And this is just the snakes. This doesn't count the spider and the leeches and the gargoyles and the caiman. And
What kind of Theraphosa do you keep?
the spider?
Yeah.
Green bottle blue.
Nice. Chromatopelmicina pubescens. Is it a mature animal?
Yes. So I don't know how to sex them. It's more just of a display piece to look pretty because it's gorgeous. I'm assuming it's a female because of her size. She's huge. So, and I've had her for 2.5 years, and I got her as a sling.
Nice.
So I'm assuming it's a girl just because of the size. I don't know how to sex them. So, but I don't breed them, so it's just like, you look pretty, and you won't let me touch you, but you look pretty. I can handle my caiman. I can't handle my damn spider.
Speaking of handling, that's the picture I was looking for right now, actually.
So, I heard that you roasted Caleb Howell. I want to hear that story.
Which one?
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have to be a little more specific because when it comes to Caleb, he's not safe around me. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. I did one night on one of Chris Eaton's. We did the live stream deals, the Zoom calls. One night, because my girlfriend was on there, I played nice, but it took everything in me to do that. But I think that first, maybe it was the second Zoom call he did, it was literally me 3 hours of roasting that child. And the sad part is like, he'll get on Facebook right afterwards and be like, "That was the greatest thing ever. James just ripped me a new asshole, and my ass is gonna hurt for weeks for that." And it was like, I mean, everybody else gets a good laugh out of it. So, and he's a good sport about it. And sometimes I'm serious and sometimes I'm joking. You never know when. And I'm serious every time I tell him I'll pay to get him a hooker in Arlington because the boy needs to get laid. And, you can only be a virgin for so long. I'm just saying.
We know a guy who's going on 45 and he's still alive.
Still a virgin.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, we've known
with a very large stock collection, I'm sure.
He's just a special, special man.
We've known Caleb since he was about 5 years old when his dad started bringing him to the shows, because we know Wayne and we know all the guys in East Texas. So we watched him grow up, and he's a crazy character.
He's a goober.
He's something else. And, like I said, sometimes it's serious and sometimes it's just out of fun. But, all in all, he's a good kid. And he's a very good sport about it. So, if somebody's going to be a good sport and not get butthurt about it, just keep going with it. I mean, if somebody wants to sit there and roast me, I'm going to let them, and then I'm going to turn around and roast them right back. I'm not going to take it. I will let them do their thing, and then I'll come right back and get you just as good as you got me, if not better.
So the kid that rear-ended you, what did he get for being on the phone while he was doing 60 miles an hour and you were at a stoplight?
A ticket, like 5 tickets, about 5 tickets, and that's about it. Yeah. So that was, that was interesting to say the least. I'm coming up on, let's see, here in 2 weeks will be 4 years since I had the surgery, and it took him 7 months to do the surgery after I got hit. And so all he got was ticketed. Now, in the state of Texas, I believe if you get a ticket, you get into a wreck while you're on your phone and you cause bodily harm, you lose your license. So So I don't know the extent of what happened to him. I know the dude was in tears when he left. It totaled out his car, and the officer just sat there and kept writing ticket after ticket after ticket, and I was there with a broken neck. So,
No, I'm sorry to hear that. So you said that you've got most of your mobility back?
I have most of it. My neck is fused from I got my C5, C6, C6, C7 completely fused. It's a solid plate. The damage that was done was so extensive that they, a lot of times with these fusions, they'll use the, what do you call it? The cages where they go around each vertebrae or whatever, the disc. They couldn't do that with me. The damage was so bad. And because it took them so long to do the surgery, because and no joke, I sat for 7 months like this in a recliner. I could do answer phones and stuff at work, but I couldn't do the big heavy lifting that I'd normally done. And so I spent most of my time just kind of hunched over, ended up with severe arthritis in between my shoulder blades. But because of the fusion being a solid plate, I could turn my head side to side and, do this just fine, but I can't look all the way up or down. I had literally this and this is as far up and down as my neck goes.
Well, so what was your job before? You said you've got a chick job now. What did you do with the heavy lifting?
Actually, I worked in the printing industry. I ran a bindery department, so I lifted, I folded, huge sheets of paper. I don't know if you've ever seen a commercial print shop before, but they deal in the large sheets of paper. Anywhere from up to 4 feet, 6 feet sheets of paper. Lifting that all day, running all the equipment. It was a very, very physically demanding job. And now, because of my, situation with my neck, I can do anything I want to an extent. But there are certain things that I do that, after a few minutes, I'm done for the day. Sometimes 2 or 3 days, just depending on how much strain it physically puts on my neck. So now I'd like I said, I've got a chick job. I sit in an office all day, and it pays the bills and it's okay, but I'm not really, I'm a people person, but I'm not a people person. I can go to a show and I'm as people-y as they come. Running around, doing googly eyes, shenanigans, talking to everybody. In the real world, I'm actually really quiet and shy. And so now that I have to deal with people, it's just, yeah. But it pays the bills and it pays pretty well.
Good deal. So the dude that you guys were talking about on the show, I'd never heard of. You called him Skinny or something biker name. He is like a mentor to you. Who is that
Limey.
guy? Limey, yeah.
We've heard
Limey.
Who is
Limey Smidger. He owns Royal Reptilia. The man is absolutely amazing. His animals by far exceed the, half the top breeders in the industry. And that's all he does for a living is snakes. And he does, leeches and gargoyles and kahuas. And, he does a variety of animals, but the man his animals are bar none some of the nicest I have ever seen or purchased. I've got quite a few animals from him. Actually, he's the one who talked me into getting into the paint project. He's been trying to get me into it for a few years. It was one of those I didn't want to put that kind of investment into an animal that no one in Texas had it. And so, you'd go to Arlington or whatever and nobody had paint. And I'm not going to just, even though they look great in pictures, I want to be able to put the animal in my hand and be able to inspect every aspect of this if I'm going to, be dumping a ton of money into a new gene. And so he'd been trying to talk me into it for, at this point, I think probably a year and a half. And then the last Tinley that we had before Rona, I was there, and Mary and Grant Hubbard, they own Rec Room Snakes. Well, they had actually produced a calico yellow belly paint that was bar none one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. I'd seen the pictures online. You know, I followed them on Facebook, friends with them on Facebook. You know, I'd seen this animal, pictures of it, and they had it in Tinley, and they actually let me pull out all their paint stuff and all their het paint stuff, so I'd have an idea of what I was going to do if I wanted to get into the project or not. After about an hour of going through their animals, I was sold on it. And I actually almost bought that animal. It was a debate between that and a leopard acid from Daniel at Constriction Addiction. And then I thought better of it and used that money to put new windows in my house. But then, you know, I told, I'd hit up Limey as soon as I was on my way home from Tinley, and I was like, I want in on the project. And so since then, I have purchased quite a few. You know, all my females are hets, but I do have a visual multi-gene male. And that little turd still hasn't figured out what his hemipenes are for. And I'm sitting here thinking, I've got 50 snakes in here that I could use him on to make some killer animals. And, but I mean, and Limey's just one of those guys that he's genuinely, he's one of those guys that'll bust your balls all day long. But is just legitimately one of the best guys in the industry I've ever had the pleasure of, you know, interacting with, whether it be, you know, on the phone, online, in person. And honestly, I've never actually got to meet him in person.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, I mean, he would be, you know, a lot of people want to meet Justin Kabilka, or they want to meet Brian Kusko, or, you know, Barchek, or, you know, all these huge name guys. If I had one man in this industry that I've not met that I want to meet in person, would be Limey.
Where's he located?
South Carolina.
Okay. Where all the big boys play, huh?
Yeah, I believe it's South Carolina. It may be Virginia, but I'm pretty sure it's South Carolina. Yeah, I've picked up several of the paint stuff from, and the guy is just as humble as can be. I bought an Orange Dream het paint female from him back in November, and so he sends it to me. And with his okay, to put it this way, I'm very selective on who I will buy from. Period. Ever, if, ands, or buts. I would not hesitate if he told me he had an animal. I would buy it sight unseen. If it was a specific genetic I was looking for, wouldn't care, sight unseen. That's how quality his animals are. I actually bought a hypo from him back in October. Hypo is my main recessive genetic. I have a ton of it in my room. I don't buy hypo stuff from anybody. I produce, you know, anything I have or I want, I produce myself. Yeah, his hypo stuff was just, I saw a picture of an animal, circled it, sent it to him, said, I want that animal. I don't care how much it costs. I don't ever buy hypo stuff from anybody. And it's like, I had to have that animal. And so you'll see him on, like, excuse me, sorry, a lot of the bull python groups and stuff. And, you know, he'll post his animals, and you'll understand what I mean by it. But when I bought that Orange Dream girl, you know, I picked her up from FedEx, and I got home. I opened that box and immediately knew something was wrong. And so it's not that there's something was wrong, but that wasn't just an Orange Dream. Even with a het paint influence, I knew it was something else, and I immediately knew what it was. And so I texted him, and I was like, you just sent me an Orange Dream red stripe het paint. And I didn't even know what the pairing was that produced this female. And he's like, well, I can't prove it. He's like, I don't know 100% for sure that's what it was. So you got her as a Orange Dream het paint. I was like, I knew what it was without knowing what the pairing was. And he said, well, you know, red stripe was in the pairing. And I'm like, that's an Orange Dream red stripe, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he's like, well, I guess you got a good deal. And I was like, well, I mean, I did, but I wanted to reimburse him for, you know, the extra genetics, and he wouldn't do it. And so whether he likes it or not, when I produce visual stuff with that animal, I will be sending him one because
That's cool.
he really is that good of a guy. And I mean, I would send him one just for free, just because. I don't care, because the money doesn't matter to me. Don't get me wrong. I like to make money doing this, but I do have a full-time job, and I do it because I enjoy it. And so I could give away a high-end snake to anybody I wanted to, and it like I wouldn't bat my eyelash.
Right.
So
Ever.
educate us on the paint. I don't know anything about it, and I was trying to look it up, and I see a lot of head stuff online, but I don't see any visuals. And even if I did see a visual, I don't know what it is. It as good as the Huffman?
I think everyone in here is in the paint project too.
What is Huffman?
It's Caleb's favorite gene, the one that Chris knocked him for. I'm just teasing you about it. I don't know anything about paint, so I do want to.
It's the one that all your Texas friends like, but you don't seem to.
Well,
so the paint gene basically it's hard to explain. It pixelates the animal. It breaks up the pattern and pixelates it and enhances the color. It is a recessive. People were thinking for a while, there's been the argument that it's codom, that it's recessive, but Limey's been working the project for years, and it is a recessive, but it's kind of like a pied, where pieds have a lot of them, the heads will have the tracks. Paints are kind of the same way, except for it's not tracks, it's pixelization at the belly scales.
I could just get a video about a pixelated ball. Is that actually the paint gene that he's working with on that?
The one Justin did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that video.
So I've seen the video, and I have talked to a couple other people. If it's not paint, it is something that's going to be extremely similar to paint. Because even Justin, says it has similarities to paint.
but they're calling it something else.
Yeah, because Justin's had his since I want to say like 2012, and he's been working with it, and his is like the ones that I saw in his video were like these extreme cases, and so they could be the same, but on the same note, kind of like Black Pastel and Huffman, they look similar but they're different.
So what's the history on the paint? Who first discovered it, and how did he work it? Do you know any of that history?
I don't know the history of it. I wish I did. I knew of a handful of people working with it for the last several years. And Limey's been working with it. I couldn't even tell you how long, but he's produced so many. And then I bought heads and visuals from him two years ago. And then at one point, Brittany Gobble had messaged me asking about the paint stuff. And, I gave her all the information I could. And, she would see the stuff that Limey would post or whatever. And then she would see the animals that I would post. And eventually she came to me wanting to buy an animal from me. I don't have any available. So I sent her to Limey because I knew Limey had visuals at that time. And she bought a pair of yellow belly paints, a male and a female. And then Chris McDougall bought a visual from him. And we all just kind of, everybody's like oohing and ahhing over these animals. It's like, okay, don't get me wrong, they're amazing animals, but I would rather give credit where credit is due. Limey's the one who produced these. He's produced a ton of them. Well, he sold out of them this year completely. Wow. And, so I would rather promote my friends, and especially if they have super high quality animals, I'd promote them over myself any day. Don't get me wrong, self-promotion is great, but I want to see my friends succeed. And so, Limey, the work he has put in the project, he's done it for so long, and it's just now in the last 2 years started really picking up the traction that it deserves. And so I know for a fact that Justin does have some paint. Ozzy's working with the paint now. There's several of us that have invested heavily into the project.
Well, you talked about the male you had that you got 50 females to breed, and you're talking about throwing him in with another male. Did you ever do that just to try to get him stimulated?
I have. I've tried throwing him in with the male. I've tried the shed. Throwing the shed in with him. All of that, and then after that podcast or the YouTuber, I don't even remember what it was I did with Jason. But after we did that, Limey called me because he was watching that, and he's like, the more you were talking about it, because this animal is just under 2 years old. He said all my visual stuff, male wise, has taken a little bit longer to go than like a female would, or like any other male. He's like, something about the paint gene. He's like, once they hit 2 years old, bam, they're breeding machines. And he's like, but it's almost like they wait till they're exactly 2 years old. And so I still try. I give him a chance. I've got a yellow belly and or asphalt girl that I'd love to prove out. So I've been trying to throw him with her, try to prove her out, because if she pops out ivory, cool. I know she's yellow belly, but if I get freeway het paints, that'd be pretty cool. Because I wouldn't mind making freeway paints down the line. And so I have tried a few things. I've tried putting him in the bottom of the rack where it's cooler, even though my room is not that much different because I run ambient. And so it's 86 in here, whether it's on the floor or the ceiling. It's hot in here all the time. So
how many snakes are you running right now?
Breeders or just in general?
Ball pythons. Let's just stick with that for the moment.
But like a breeder size, or just how many do I have in my collection?
How many do you have in your collection? Not for sale.
Not for sale. 250.
Damn. How long you been in the ball python project?
I've been into the snakes since I was a kid. And I actually bred boas years ago, and I did it all the wrong way. This is back before internet forums and everything else. Right. So much has been learned since then. But the ball pythons I've been in since, been back into them since 2015.
Oh wow! So you built this collection in just what is it, 7 years?
6 years.
That's pretty awesome.
So,
I want to hear.
And honestly, I would have a lot more if I had more room. I'll be honest with you. I would have a ton more, but because like my rodent production, I produce enough rodents to feed twice my collection. So, and I've actually cut back on my rodents because I was producing so many, but I still want to keep enough around that way when every time I do expand. I don't want to be that guy that, crap, I just bought 10 snakes and I can only feed 2 of them. I know too many people that do that, breeders that do that.
Right.
So you want to hear about the Cayman?
Who would do that?
Yeah, I love crocodilians.
He's a little asshole.
Yeah.
He's getting better. I've had him for, I guess, just at a year. Right at a year. Got him at the Herps Conroe show down in Conroe last year. And the dude was 4 days out of the egg when I got him. So I thought, thinking, okay, this thing is literally out of the egg. Yeah. This thing's going to be easy to work with and tame, because you watch all the nerds videos and they've got all these caimans that are just puppy dog tame, and you'd be surprised they're really not that easy to tame. I don't care how much you work with them. Nope. What's funny is last 4th of July I went to Tennessee, went and visited a buddy of mine, Brad, and I ended up on the 4th of July in Chattanooga at Alyssa Leonard's house. She owns Full Throttle Reptiles. Well, at this point, I'd already had my Cayman, and she would make fun of me because I'd post pictures wearing a glove. Well, I don't know if anybody's ever been bit by 200 razor blades. It's not fun.
Oh yeah.
And so, she would always give me crap about posting pictures of me holding the Cayman with a glove on. This thing's not tame by any means. It's a baby. It's very defensive because I'm so much bigger than it is. It's just scared. And so she has a Cayman that's at the time was probably 10 times the size of mine. You know, because mine was like this big, little bitty. But hers was really, you know, it was pretty good size. It was still small. It was a juvenile. She named it Steve, and she's like, "You need to come hold Steve without a glove." And so I ended up in Chattanooga at her house. I'd gone to see Jennifer there, and so she pulls out the Cayman. She pulls it out barehanded. Okay, no big deal. And I knew I was going to get bit. I knew I was, because that's just my luck. If it's, you know, if it bad can happen to me, it happens. Literally, she goes to hand him to me, and you know, I'm trying to slide my hand up underneath this Cayman. And as soon as I get my hand there, he immediately, and it was so fast you couldn't see it, turned around and got a hold to my thumb and would not let go. And so every time they tried to get, because I'm sitting here holding him like this, because he kept trying to death roll my thumb. Well, anytime they tried to take him off, he would try to death roll my thumb and just dig his teeth further and further into that joint. And, you know, it didn't hurt because he wasn't like being aggressive. He was just holding on, but they'd try to take him off and he'd just start kneeing it like that. Well, dig in. All of a sudden it started hitting the nerves in the bone. And they finally had to get, after about 15 minutes, got a blow dryer and was able to blow dry his face off of my thumb. And I think we picked 3 teeth out of my thumb that Jennifer put in one of those little glass vials. Well, then I was driving home back to Texas the next day, and every time I tried to turn my steering wheel, there was a tooth lodged inside the bend of my thumb. And every time it hit my steering wheel, like shoot, like this electric current all the way up my arm. Mm-hmm. And so when I got home, I found the sharpest knife I could and dug that damn thing out. But, you know, my Cayman's pretty cool. His name is Creature. I work with him 3 to 5 times a week still. For usually, you know, 15, 20 minutes at a time. You know, sometimes I don't, you know, depending on how busy my day is, I may, you know, just get him out for a couple of minutes. He's gotten a lot better and I can actually get him out and handle him without a glove. But, you know, I'm here by myself 99% of the time. And the last thing I want to do is have to walk out of my house and have somebody try to help me get a Cayman off my hand. So...
Yeah, we did an open house last weekend for our community, and somebody wanted to see we got a pair of Morlets, and one of them loves me extra special. So I reached in there to grab him, and he did what he always does. He laid into me, and I picked him up, and I was holding him, and I was bleeding, but I didn't realize how much. So he got a artery in my finger, and so I put him back, and we have another one that's really gentle. I picked him up, and all of a sudden I look down, and my hand's just red. So I walk in the house, and I go to the sink.
This tour of people out in the looking at all these ponds of turtles and crocodiles, and
all of a sudden she comes running into the kitchen. What happened? Who got hurt? And I said, "Oh, it was the Morlet." She said, "Oh, okay."
Well, I came in.
She knew.
One of the little kids needed the bathroom, so I opened the back door, and I just said, "Whose trail of blood?" And that's all I said. And we had Sydney here from MSB, and she's at the table just chilling. And she goes, "How often do you guys have to say that?" And we're like, I mean, I don't know. And, yeah, she laughed about that. Last time it was my trail of blood. That was a fun story. John was with us on that one.
That was a lot more blood than mine.
That was a lot more blood. Yeah.
I did make the mistake one day. I had him outside. You know, it was nice outside, you know, because being in the house, you know, I supplement UVB and everything, but I do take him outside regularly when it's weather permitting. And because where I live, it's either butt freezing cold or hotter than hell. Mm. And so when it's nice, I take him outside. And at one point, I had taken him outside, and he was doing so good. Like, he hadn't struck at me in like 2 weeks. He just chill as could be. And the second I set him on the ground, he's just kind of looking at me like, okay, this is cool. And, you know, he just kind of chilled for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes and just slowly walked around the yard and went to go pick him up. And, you know, I'd had my glove on when I put him down. Well, I wasn't thinking. So, you know, I'd already taken the glove off, and it's like, wasn't thinking, went to pick him up, and he caught a hold to my hand right here. But it was just a quick snap, bite, let go. And, you know, got these blood veins right here, and it's just going, pew, pew, pew. And I was like, shit. And it didn't hurt at first because their teeth, at this age, and I honestly, I think he still has his baby teeth that are razor sharp. But his teeth are so sharp, you don't really feel it. It's like getting a shot. But then, after a few minutes, all of a sudden your body realizes, hey, that's a puncture wound and that hurts. And it's like, didn't hurt at all getting bit. And then all of a sudden, like 2 or 3 minutes later, it's like my hand's throbbing and it's bleeding all over the place. I'm like, crap. But so I still handle right. I still handle him with the glove, and he really is an amazing creature. And when the game warden got called on me several months ago, they asked what was in this huge tank that's in my living room, and I'm like, it's perfectly legal, I promise, but there's an alligator in there. I said, well, it's not an alligator. I said, it's a smooth front caiman. And this game warden, just his eyes get like this big, and he's like, oh, I got to see this thing. And so, I move everything around because he was hiding under some brush. That game warden thought he was the coolest thing in the world. And he's like, I want to hold him so bad, but he's like, I'll get bit. And I was like, yes, you will. I was like, yes, you will. I was like, and you've been really nice to me this whole visit. And so I don't want you to get bit by one of my animals because you've already told me you're not taking them away from me.
So why did the Fish and Game get called on you?
Oh, dear God. So my daughter that just graduated high school on Tuesday night.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She was 17 years old, and this happened back in October. So she's 17 years old. I have custody of her, and have since she was 11. And she, we were doing a week she was doing a week at her mom's house and a week at my house. Cause I'm a firm believer in both parents getting equal time with the child. I don't think any one parent should get more time than the other. And so even though I have full custody, I would allow her to go to her mom's every other week. She would stay there, get there on Monday and then come back to my house the following Monday. Well, I don't talk bad about my ex-wife, but she does have a drinking problem. And my daughter at 17, it was affecting her every time she'd go over there. And so she made the conscious decision that she didn't want to be in that kind of environment. And, I support that. I'm not going to make her go somewhere where she's uncomfortable. And so she had told me that she wasn't going to go over there, anymore, that she'd go over there, but she wasn't going to be staying for a week at a time. Mm-hmm. Okay, baby girl, that's your decision. Well, after a couple of weeks of this, her mom throws a wall-eyed fit and calls me, and her mom's not very subtle with anything. She's very vocal, and like when I get into an argument with you, I will talk to you like I'm talking to you now. I don't have to raise my voice. I don't have to be ugly. She's not that way. And so her trying to say that I was keeping my daughter from her, whatever. I was like, she's 17. It's a conscious decision she made. Mm-hmm. And so it ended up being an ugly night. Well, the next day, me and my daughter were out riding the Harley. And, for October, it was really, really freaking warm. And we've been out for several hours. We decided to come home and eat some lunch. And it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're sitting there. We put on a movie, and we're sitting there eating pizza rolls. And I saw 2 sheriffs walk up to my door. Okay, it's happened before, looking for people that lived here prior to me buying the house. So I didn't think anything of it until I opened the door, and it was the game warden and 2 sheriffs. Oh, crap. And like immediately I knew what was going on. And he asked me if, I was James Durling, if I owned Yellow Rose Exotics. And I was like, well, there'd be no point in lying to you, because if you know that much about me, you've already done your research. And so they had gotten an anonymous call the night before that I was breeding king cobras in my house. Not that that's illegal by any means. It's legal in the state of Texas as long as you're permitted. But she had them convinced that I was breeding cobras in my house, and I had a young child here that was in danger. So needless to say, him and the sheriffs were here for roughly 2 hours. And my nerves, like as soon as I realized he was there for me, like my heart rate went up, my nerve level went here. It's like crap, because if you get the game warden called on you, okay, you're losing your animals. 80% of the time, you're going to lose your animals. And so I'd actually, kept a collection for the nobles 2 years ago because Arkansas Fish and Game had got called on them.
Mm-hmm.
But so, he asked me, he's like, well, do you sell them? And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, I do. I was like, just to, said I make a little bit of money, but I said I like to invest. So the money I make, I invest into newer snakes most of the time. I was like, and that's what most of this stuff does for me is invest in more stuff. And so, they're in my living room, and he's like, well, how many do you have? And at that point, I had like 140 hatchlings in here. And it was right after, it was right as breeding season ended. All my clutches were hatched. And so I told him, I was like, there's over 300 snakes in my room. And his eyes just were huge. And so he's asking me if I'm permitted, if I got my permit to sell, if I've got my exotics permit, all this. And I was like, nope. I said, I've got my business license. I said, but that's all I need in the state of Texas and in our county and city. Well, he'd never been put in a position like this to come to a house where there's 300 snakes.
Right.
And so he's like, well, I have to inspect every animal to make sure there's no venomous animals here that are not permitted, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay. And so one of the sheriffs goes, well, if you've got that many animals in your house, how come it doesn't stink in here? I was like, because I keep my animals clean. I keep my house clean. And so.
And reptiles don't stink? I mean,
yeah. Well, I don't know.
Enclosures can smell, but reptiles themselves don't stink. And most people think, oh, well, animals stink.
Yeah, exactly. And so, my snake room's in the back of the house. And so I walked them back here, and I was like, okay. I was like, do whatever you need to do. I said, I'll be in there with you if you need me to. If not, I'll stay out here and let you do your inspection. And he's like, no, I need you in there. Okay. So I turned on the light and come in here, and he looks around, and, I have all PVC racks, but he's like, what is this? And I was like, these are my snakes. Well, he'd never seen anything like this. He'd never seen a breeder setup before.
Right.
And he was thoroughly impressed. And he's like, why doesn't it stink in here? And I was like, they don't stink. I said, as long as you keep their enclosures clean, there's nothing to worry about. And so, but because of the genetic diversity I have, he had to open every single tub in the room and inspect every single animal. That's time consuming. And I was honestly getting kind of frustrated, and I knew he had a job to do, but I didn't want him, to take my animal. So, it ended up being, he's like, well, why does this one look like this? And why do you have a yellow snake here, but you've got a black snake here, and then, you've got a solid white snake here. And so basically I ended up having to give him a whole entire genetics lessons and Punnett square lessons and everything else on these animals. And so after a few minutes, he's like, do you mind if I use my personal phone to take pictures? No, go for it. Cool. And because he finally, after about 5 or 10 minutes of being in here, the dude was just enthralled. He couldn't believe what he was looking at. And so for somebody like us, a reptile room is a reptile room. I mean, yeah, they're all different, but at the same time, they're all the same. Right. Everybody's layout's different racks, different animals, but reptile room's a reptile room. And so he's taking pictures, and I'm having to educate him on everything. And he couldn't fathom the fact that I had 300 snakes in here that were all one genus of animal that had just different genetics. They were all ball pythons, but I ranging anywhere from blackhead stuff to leucistics and ultra males and pieds. And he's just like, this is insane. And so I basically, I was having to explain to him, with the state laws for the ball pythons, our city laws and our county laws, to let him know that my business license suffices for me to have my animals. Well, he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. He's like, I don't know the laws. He's like, I've never been put in this situation. He said, there's so many laws when it comes to fish and game and wildlife. He's like, nobody knows them all. And he's like, I'm going to have to do my own research. And so he ended up giving me a citation for not having my seller's license. And I was like, okay. And so then as we're leaving, you know, he's like, do you have any more animals in the house? And I was like, besides the dogs. And I was like, I've got lychee geckos, gargoyle geckos. I've got, you know, green bottle blue tarantula. And I didn't say anything about the caiman. And just because I really wasn't even thinking about it. And so the sheriff, they wouldn't step foot in the room. They're both standing at that door. And, you know, they wanted to see the lizards. So I took them to show them the lizards. And what was really cool about the whole ordeal is it worked out really well, even though it sucked that they got called on me, you know, and I got put on their radar. You know, it was a good teaching lesson for me to, you know, educate him and the sheriffs on it that, you know, not all snakes are bad snakes. And he had to actually call his superiors while he was here, and he had them on speakerphone. And it was one of the greatest things I've ever been a part of. Just for the simple fact that as soon as he called, you know, the guy on the other end, his superior seemed a little too eager to confiscate my animals. And so he flat tells him, he's like, you've got to see this place. It's amazing. You know, this whole setup is as professional as I've ever seen. And he's like, well, how many animals does he have in there? And he's like, well, we didn't count them exactly, but there's over 300. And the guy's like, that's disgusting. That's nasty. And he's like, no, he's like, there's literally, he said, the only thing you can smell in here is he uses a coconut substrate that, you know, that absorbs, you know, any kind of odor or whatever, but that helps keep the humidity for these animals. He said, it's a temperature controlled room. He's like, it's really warm in here. He's like, but it's fully temperature controlled, external thermostats. And so his superior was asking him, you know, several questions. And finally, at the very last thing he asked him, he's like, is this a situation where we need to come in and take the animals? And this game warden's like, oh, hell no. He's like, you need to come check this out. He's like, it's amazing. And so it made me feel good that, you know, he was, you know, understanding enough to know that, you know, what I'm doing is not dangerous. He thought it was against the law for me to sell them without a permit. So he leaves my house. And at that point, I'm pissed because of what my ex-wife did, because he couldn't tell me exactly who it was. Even my daughter, you know, immediately she told him, she's like, it was my mom. She's like, I know it was, because there's no reason anybody would have ever called. You know, I don't usually, like, I don't advertise locally. You know, like, I've been to the local shows a couple of times here, but I don't advertise around here that I have snakes. And so, you know, my daughter's 17 at the time, 17. She's like, telling the game warden, it was my mom. She's like, you don't have to worry about it. We know. And so he leaves, you know, or they decided, that's when he asked what was in the big aquarium in the living room, because it's 125 or 150 gallon. And I said, you know, so it's an alligator. He's like, well, not really an alligator. It's a smooth front caiman. And I said, but it is legal. I said, I don't have anything in my home that needs a permit, that's illegal. I said, I do all my research. And he just wanted to see it. And so he left, and I was pissed, not at him by any means. The whole thing, by the time it was all said and done, it turned into a really good experience. Hate that it happened the way it did, but he left, and I threw it out there on Facebook, you know, for everybody to make sure, you know, because I knew that I'd crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's legally, you know, in my area. But, you know, hey, make sure if you need permits in your town, or if you need permits in your county, because every township and county has their own laws when it comes to any kind of exotic animals.
Right.
And so I was like, you know, I just had the game warden here at my house for 2 hours. I was like, make sure you're legal. Well, I left it kind of, I didn't intentionally do it. I left it kind of vague. I just said the game warden was at my house for 2 hours. I didn't say, hey, it was a really good experience, or, you know, whatever. And for the next 2 hours, people were blowing my phone up, blowing up my Facebook, calling me, texting me, wanting to know what's going on. Well, finally, at one point, this game warden, after a couple of hours, calls me, and I have a little local home-owned pet shop 2 blocks from where I live. And he'd gone to their parking lot and sat there and researched everything I had told him about the laws for our county, for our city, for the state. And he calls me back and immediately apologizes to me. And he's like, you were 100% right. You were 100%, how do you put on the up and up or something? I knew what I was talking about whenever I was telling him about our local laws and our state laws. When it referenced the ball pythons, he's like, you know what you're doing. And I was like, I have to. I was like, I've got, $150,000 invested in this room. I'm not going to lose that over a $60 permit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I completely get that. Cause I told him, I was like, well, if I need a permit, I was like, I got no problem going and get it. I said, I'll go get it tomorrow. Just tell me where to go. And so he told me where to go. And then, come to find out, I didn't need anything. He was apologizing to me. And he's like, well, go ahead. He's like, I've already discarded the citation I wrote you. He's like, go ahead and throw that away. I was like, hell no, I'm framing that, putting it in my snake room. And so it was an experience, and it all happened because of, petty differences between me and my ex-wife, where I wasn't going to make my daughter go to an environment where she didn't feel comfortable. And so that's why the game warden got called, and it was a good time. Really, really good time.
It's awesome that you were able to take something that could have turned out really bad and turned it into something positive, though.
Yeah.
And I imagine that your attitude and your collection being in pristine shape and all that had a huge influence on the outcome, because if they had come and you had acted totally hostile, or your collection wasn't in the shape it was,
Exactly.
Coming from an ignorant standpoint, they probably would have gotten, not just all these snakes are probably due to be clean. It would have been, oh, this is dangerous. Oh, this is dirty. Oh, this is bad. Oh, this is a hazard to the public. And so it's really awesome that you were able to keep your cool, even though you were sweating. And,
I was.
That's scary. I mean,
yeah.
It's scary. Living in New Mexico, the laws were bad. We're happy to be here.
Oh, so you are in Texas now?
Yeah.
Oh, where at in Texas?
We live in the Odessa area.
We're an hour south. Well, we love it.
We're in West. You can hunt gray bands from
our backyard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, because Big Springs, I would consider Big Springs the butthole of Texas. But where you're at's not bad. It's really similar. Well, actually, if you're an hour south, it might be a little bit greener. But Midland, Odessa area, it's flat, it's windy, it's hot. It's because Chris McDougall of Snakenstein actually lives in Odessa.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And actually, when I went down there a couple months ago, when we had the nasty freeze back in was it February? It killed off his rodent collection. So me and a couple of other, breeders here in Texas, I know what it's like to lose your rodents. I've had it happen to me. And, I was like, I messaged him. I was like, well, what are you doing Saturday? And he's like, I don't know yet. Why? And I was like, cause I'm bringing you a bunch of rodents. I was like, I need an address. And so me and a couple of other breeders, we completely restocked his, rodent facility for him. And granted, a lot of it had to be, some of it had to be grown up because, taking in weans or whatever. But, we got him to where he was back on track, and, Corey brought him, enough to, for feeders. I brought enough for him to grow out. She brought enough for him to feed his collection. So, driving down there, and that's a 5.5 hour drive for me. And it's flat, boring, windy, dusty. And it kind of smells down there because of all the oil rigs.
Well, I lived in North Dakota for 9 years, and all we could smell was that we lived right next to a processing plant out in the middle of nowhere, and that's all you smelled was the oil field. So it's kind of like home to me.
Well, so there's more wind turbines where we are. We're in a pretty little basin. Our small community is all funded by wind farms. So the hospital that he works at is brand new and beautiful. The school that I work at is brand new and beautiful. We both have everything we want at work. We both make a lot of money. We were able to buy a big farmhouse on acreage with big trees. I mean, it's heaven for us.
Nice.
And it looks like Snakenstein is here. Snakenstein, we need to hook up sometime, talk snakes.
Definitely.
So
Chris,
So that's one of the cool
definitely
things.
get Chris on here. Y'all definitely need to get Chris on here. He's an amazing guy.
we'd love to.
I love that man like a brother.
Well, if he's in Odessa, we should just meet up.
Yeah.
We have another friend in Odessa that we go to see every chance we get.
Yeah. I'm on call a lot, so I don't get to leave town a whole lot, but every once in a while I get a day off. So tell us a little bit about your history. Are you a Texan through and through? And what was your first experience with reptiles or snakes, or how'd you get into it?
Born and raised in Texas. I left for a few years when I turned 21 and moved up to the Seattle area. Beautiful place to visit. Don't ever move there to live there. So I was there for a couple of years, came back. I'm an identical twin. So it's kind of hard to be away from, that. But I've been here all my life, born and raised in Amarillo, minus the couple of years I was gone. I got into reptiles when I was, we were 6 years old. My mom was dating a guy that had 2 Burmese pythons. And so we're talking, this is 1984, 83, 84-ish. And so she was dating a guy that had these 2 Burmese pythons that lived in a room full of boxes. Like he had this huge fake tree that he had made from the floor to the ceiling for him to climb or whatever. But then there were boxes strung everywhere, so they'd have like hiding places or whatever. As a breeder now, I'd be like, but as a 6-year-old, that's the coolest thing ever. And he would actually let us go in that room with him, and he would help me and my brother Jason hold these snakes. And my mom was always big into any kind of reptiles or any kind of animals in general. She was, the ranch I grew up on, she had over 5,000 birds between chickens and ducks and geese, peacocks, pheasant, turkey. I mean, you name it, she had it. And she was just the biggest animal lover I ever knew. And so she was always really adamant about making sure that me and my brother weren't afraid of the animals. She was a very good teacher of, okay, yes, a rattlesnake will hurt you, but there's no reason to fear the rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. Don't play with the rattlesnake. Don't mess with it. It won't mess with you. She was never one to say, no, don't mess with it. It's going to hurt you. Because, fear's taught. You're not born afraid of anything. Mm-hmm. And so it's always the kid, the way I talk about it when I'm trying to teach people about the snakes that are scared of them is like, you associate being afraid of them because your parents told you, no, that's going to bite you. You associate bites with pain. And so you don't want to get bit. So it scares you to get bit. It's not the animal you're scared of, because most people aren't actually afraid of the animals. They're afraid of getting bit. And I'm more worried about getting bit by a dog than I am anything else. Mm-hmm. And so, she was always good about teaching us, to respect animals, whether it was the reptiles, snakes, anything. And our local flea market for years and years and years allowed animal sales. Well, there was this one vendor that always had boas and ball pythons. And, you're talking mid 80s. So everything back then was just wild type. Everything was just normal, but it was the coolest thing in the world. And so my mom would take us like every weekend, she Friday or Saturday or Sunday, she would take us up there, and the guy got to where he knew us by name. We got to handle his animals and take pictures every week. And it was just one of those things that, me and my brother both ended up with a passion for. And so growing up, we would catch anything and everything. We respected around here, the only venomous we really have are rattlesnakes. But, we've got king snakes, and we've got, racers and bull snakes and hognose and, just a variety of animals. And we'd catch them and enjoy them for a few minutes and let them go. And when I turned 15, my mom, she owned 2 restaurants. She had a customer that actually had a room. The room was 60 feet wide, and this guy's was a multimillionaire. He'd built a atrium for birds. Well, then he realized how bad birds really are, because he had all these exotics in here. He had a full watering system. I think the room was 30 feet tall, 100 feet long. It was huge, and he did the birds for about a year, but it was a nonstop battle trying to clean and everything else. And it was so time consuming. And so he got into the reptiles, and he ended up, like, he had full watering system. It was like one of the coolest places. It was a full bioactive room that was huge. It was bigger than my house is now. And it was full of snakes, and it was mostly boas. He had a couple of ball pythons in there. He had a rainbow boa that was the most vicious animal I've ever been around. That thing, yeah, I don't like rainbow boas. Actually, they don't like me, and so I just steer clear of them. He actually had a caiman in there, and he had chameleons, and everything was temperature controlled. The watering system, it rained daily. He'd make it rain. Everything was just like, dude spent millions of dollars on this room.
Wow.
And so somehow, I found out that he had these animals, and like, I'm immediately fascinated. I'm 15 years old, working for my mom, and he's like, well, why don't you come over sometime? I was like, okay. So my mom, takes me over there. Well, he immediately puts me to work cleaning up, animal sheds and poop, and all the foliage in there was live. So if there was any leaves on the ground, cleaning up the leaves, and it was all indoor, outdoor carpet in the walkways, and he just rinse it off. And like, I thought it was cool. He puts me to work immediately, but like, I'm getting to see all these animals. I can go pick up any of these animals that I can reach, and it was such a neat experience. So I ended up working for him on the weekends, cleaning up, just because I wanted to. For several months. And one day I come home, and my mom's like, okay, well, I gotta take you over there. He needs you to clean today or whatever. He's got company. I was like, okay. Well, he's like, well, I need you to help me move this big 55-gallon aquarium, and this other enclosure he had. He's like, we're taking it to a friend's house. He's getting a few of these animals. I was like, okay. And so he pulls out this huge boa, this female, and he's like, okay, we're taking this one. And he's like, I need you to go find the 2 baby red tails that are in here, which I knew where they were at. They were always in kind of the same vicinity. And he's like, those are going too. And I was really depressed because I love those 2 babies. And like, I had names at 15 years old. I had names for these babies that were always up in the tree. And so we get them loaded up. We get all this stuff loaded up onto a trailer. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and run you home. I was like, okay. Well, we get there, and immediately he starts unloading stuff. And I was like, what are we doing? He's like, these are your animals. He's like, you've been busting your butt for me for months. He's like, this is your payment for them. Well, he'd worked it out with my mom, and my mom was totally cool with it. I think she liked the babies more than I did. And so it actually, actually owning the reptiles in any kind of capacity started at 15. And so it went from the 2 babies to in the big boa to, ended up with his ball pythons that he had. And then somehow ended up with Burmese. And it was really fun. We ended up having to move in the middle of my senior year, and the place we moved to, we didn't tell him I had the animals, but my brother, like the dumbass he is, But he was cool walking around the front yard with one of the big snakes wrapped around his shoulders, and the owners saw it. And I had 3 days to get rid of my animals or move out. And so I had to get rid of my animals. And so that was, at this point I was 18. I'd had these animals for 3 years. And then, so I had to get rid of them, spur of the minute. Horrible, horrible experience for me. And then, so I think I was 24 when I decided to go ahead and get back into owning at least owning a snake. And then it turned into owning, went to the pet shop, bought a boa as a baby, grew it up. It was a female. And, in 1999, 2000, cohabbing was still a thing. And, because we didn't have quite the forums and stuff and the internet access, back then that we do now. And so,
there weren't even very many books.
There really weren't. And so, I'll admit, I did, looking back now, everything I did was wrong. Like, I would shoot myself if I knew then what I know now. I'd be like, nope, can't do it. But I ended up with 4 adults and kept them in 2 huge and custom built enclosures. And luckily, or I say luckily, somehow I managed to just have a male and a female in each one. And all of a sudden, one day I come home and bam, there's this huge litter of boas.
Nice.
And I was like, oh dear God, what do I do? Like, and there was nobody around here to help me. There was nobody around here to mentor me. I literally did not know what the hell I was doing. I'm picking up these babies that are coming out of those sacks, and they're just slimy and wiggly. And I'm like, what the hell? I didn't know what to do with them. And so, they all got put in a big blue Rubbermaid tote. I cleaned them up, and I didn't know what to do with them. I stuck a bunch of grass in there, and it's like, what do I do with these things? And so I went to the library, and I found a book. I don't even remember what book it was, but the only useful information that book gave me was it said wait until they shed before you offer them food. Okay, made sense. And so I did, and that first litter I had was like 17 babies.
Wow.
And so I'm having to go, I ended up having to go buy hopper mice, 17 hoppers at the time, and feed all these snakes. And I had no clue what I was going to do with them. And I had told a friend of mine about, the babies, and he's like, well, how much do you want for one? I was like, honestly, I didn't know. I was like, I think they're like $200. And he's like, okay, I'll take one. Sweet. Like, and I sold it with, and eating like one meal. Sweet. Okay. And to this day, he still has the animal. And this was 20 years ago, and he still has that snake. And, so then he just kind of spread the word around, and, back then I still had a pager. And so I'm getting pages from numbers I didn't know. And it's like, because back then cell phones, you didn't get to talk free until after 9 p.m. And if that tells you how old I am. And so, I was getting messages from people, and I sold all those babies within 2 weeks. Wow. And it's like, I was like, man, this is really cool. And so I knew the 2 that were in that enclosure were male and female. Still left them together. Never did nothing. I fed them together. Everything was, cohabbed and wrong. But, I decided I took the 2 that were in the other enclosure, took them to the pet store. And, the pet store owner sexed them, said, you got a male and a female. I was like, okay. He's like, but your female's gravid. I didn't know what the word gravid meant. I was like, I'm like, what is gravid? And he's like, pregnant. I was like, okay. Well, within 2 or 3 weeks, there was another litter. And I'm like, holy crap, what am I going to do with these? I sold all those before they even ate. I was like, I can do this. I mean, I'd made quite a bit of money off of just common red-tailed boas that, I fluked into to breeding, not even knowing it. And so I started to do a little more research on it, and ended up having a few more litters. I still was doing the whole cohab thing, and I don't know. The more I think about it, the older I get, and the more I've been doing this, professionally, the more I hate my younger self for what I did. Even though, I didn't have the knowledge back then, I look back now and I'm like, I really hate what I did. I mean, what kind of stresses did I put on animals that didn't need the stress? And so I ended up, just keeping them together and had more litters out of each one for, a couple of years. And I was doing really good with it until I ended up going through a divorce and had to get rid of every single one of them except for one, per the judge.
Jeez.
I had to sell all my animals, and except for one, and I had to split the money with my ex-wife. So I sold mine, and at that point, I had just had 2 litters of babies, and I literally sold everything for $50 to the pet store, just out of spite, just so my ex-wife wouldn't get any money, because she only wanted me to sell them so she could get all the money that we had been making previously off of the babies. Because back then, $200 was what the common price for a common boa or red tail, and she was just wanting the money, and it's like she was doing it out of spite. So I sold everything for $50 to the pet store out of spite. And then so I waited probably 7 years before I decided to go ahead and get back into the reptiles. My mom had passed away, and she was always my biggest supporter. And she told me that she'd always tell me, "You need to do that. You need to do that for a living." I didn't have a way to do that for a living back then. There was really just no way. So, and she would always talk about the reptiles that I had, because at one point I didn't just have the snakes. I had iguanas and what else? I had skinks and salamanders and newts, and she loved everything that I had. And so she would always talk about that. And so after she passed away, it's like, I kind of had something missing in my life, and I didn't know exactly what it was. And I was like, I really want to get back into the reptiles. And so I was like, I just want a pet. I just want a pet. I don't want to breed again. I don't want to do any of that. And so I got a pied male. Like, get myself I'd always wanted a pied, loved them. For so many years, they were outside of my scope of paying that much money for an animal. And so I was able to buy a pied, and I had him for, I don't know, a year or so. And finally I was like, I want, the more I got involved in the community, and some of the groups and everything else, it's like, this is what I want to do. And so I just slowly, and I didn't just go off and buy, a whole bunch of breeder females and males and start throwing stuff together. I started off, everything that I had for the first few years was I bought hatchlings. I wanted to grow my animals up. I wanted to, go through everything that I needed to in order to be successful at any point. Because at this point, I had seen so many fly-by-night breeders that had bought collections and wanted to breed, and realized how much work is involved with, even a small collection, because like my collection would be considered small compared to a lot of people's. And it's a lot of work. And so I wanted to do everything the right way. And I did end up, and I had, I'd grown up all my own animals at that point, but I did want more. And I just happened to have the opportunity to pick up a handful, not a lot, but a handful of, breeder females, but I already had, several here, and, several in my collection. And so I was like, well, I'll pick up a few. And I did, and it was a slow progression, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And I haven't like, that's the only time I've ever bought adult females. I've done some trading here and there for some. But for the most part, everything I have has all been either produced here or grown from a hatchling here that I've got from somebody else.
It's freaking awesome.
So what year was it?
Awesome that it completely went full circle for you, and how
It did.
Even though it kind of took I don't know if this is going to sound well or not. Even though it took the loss of your mom, like the way that you were able to take that, it seems like a lot of the negativity you've found a way to push forward with reptiles in one aspect or another. So that it's amazing that they have that effect on you, for one, and two, that you're able to kind of pass that on to everyone that you're with. And I just heard this story for the first time, so it's pretty freaking amazing to me. Like, we've talked quite a few times, and to kind of get this back history is just, it's pretty amazing, man. Like,
I've had some of the most amazing mentors and friends in this hobby. Everybody knows the Texas group, the Texas breeders: Mike Breezy, JT, Heidi and Jack, Santiago, Carl. Heidi and Jack have been some of my best friends for the last 5 or 6 years. Mike Breezy is a really good friend. JT is a really good friend. And, these guys, they helped me. If it wasn't for those three, for sure, I don't know exactly where I would be. Because in the beginning, they were there, making sure that I was not going to shoot myself in the foot, so to speak. And then, I've developed so many friendships, like Limey and a couple of other guys over the years that, I look up to, that have helped me, have taught me more than I could ever repay. I mean, some of these guys that, that a lot of people haven't heard of. It's like the knowledge they have, it's like, that they're low key, but they have so much knowledge and they're willing to pass it on. That's, to me, that's one of the best parts about this whole thing, is the friendships that I've made. Heidi and Jack, Limey, JT, Mike, Brad Morrison. There's just, I can name off a dozen people that helped me along the way that, if I hadn't had their help or their support, I probably would have screwed up and, completely gotten out. Because I don't like to do anything half-assed. If I do something, I invest every bit of myself into it, and I'm not lazy. I bust my ass, whether it's at work, whether it's here, and I want to be successful. I want to be successful for myself, to prove to myself that I can do this. I don't care about being Justin. I don't care about being Aussie. I don't care about being, bar chick or any of these. I don't want or need to be a big name. I want to do this to prove to myself that I can do it. To make animals that, other people enjoy, that, because no matter who you are, it feels good when you produce an animal and somebody wants to buy that animal from you.
Exactly.
And so I don't know. It's weird. I don't, I know a lot of people that want to reach the peak of being Justin and Aussie, and me, I just want to be a good breeder. I want to produce nice animals. I want to, I don't know. I just, I want to be that guy that can be looked up to, but I still look up to people, if that makes sense.
And I think that's one of the things, man. Like, a lot of people get those aspirations, but they don't realize just how much it has to take over your life. And not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, the people that are able to do it, that's amazing. Like, But if you're like, for you, you had a daughter that was in school up until this year. Like, you had to take the time for family. You had to take the time to help raise your daughter. You had to take the time for work and all these other things. Those that can devote all their time to snakes, it's amazing, but not everyone has that capability. And to be realistic with what your expectations are right now, not saying that those won't change, because myself, like, I'm new and I only have a couple clutches under my belt. I've done very well with what I have, but once it started, I can't say that the bug didn't fucking bite. Like, I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I can do this. Give me 15 years, I'll be there. But I also have to consider, well, in the next 15 years, my kids are just starting high school. You know, like, it's gonna be a big deal.
It is, and don't get me wrong, you know, I do want to get to that point where I'm not stuck in an office all day long. I want to get to the point where this is my daily office, but I don't want to get to the point where I've got 2,000 snakes. You know, if I've got 500 snakes, you know, that are breeding that can produce me enough clutches a year that I have to have my 9 to 5, you know, I'm cool with that. You know, because everything is evolving, you know, on a continuous basis. And, you know, whether it's genetics or husbandry or anything else. And, you know, so many people talk about how the ball python market is dead. It is not dead. It is not saturated. You know, you just got to produce animals that people like. And you don't have to produce, you know, 5 gene combos, and you don't have to produce these $10,000 snakes like Justin. You know, I love Justin to death. You know, and I think it's amazing that he can make all these animals that, you know, the cheapest thing I've seen on his table in any show is probably $1,500.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, I've got like $50 snakes over here, but I've also got animals that range, you know, up to $3,000 or $4,000. You know, but to have enough to be able to do this for a living would be amazing. And because you're always up, you know, improving your genetics, and you're always improving, you know, your facilities and everything else. And so, yeah, you know, get into projects that are going to make you some money. But yeah, I don't want to be so big that I would have to bring on help. I want to still be able to do it myself. Now, like my girlfriend, she breeds. You know, you know, and she does it by herself. I do it by myself. It's a lot of work. You know, if we were to combine our collections, you know, that's 2 people doing the work, you know, and help is always appreciated. But I don't want to get to the point where, you know, I'm having to hire people because I've got so many animals that I just physically don't have time to take care of. I don't want to do that. I want to stay to where I can comfortably manage my time during the week and have my business and still have a life outside of it. And that's you know, that's super important to me, is because I know a lot of people that they put so much of everything into it because they want to get to that point where they've got 2,000 or 3,000 snakes and you know, producing 500 clutches a year, and, you know, but they're still, they don't have time to enjoy their lives because they're literally just working doing this. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. You know, the idea is novel. I think it's a novel idea, and I think if you can do it, I think you know, go for it. But me personally, you know, give me a collection. You know, let me build my collection to the point where I can sustain a healthy life outside of just doing this.
I spent 20 years trying
to. Oh, go ahead.
I just gonna say I've spent 20 years trying to get to the point where my whole life is nothing but snakes. And we're starting our one employee, which is our kid. We pay him to come and help take care of animals. He's starting to get COVID flu. He wants well, not flu, but sickness. He's so tired of being locked up taking care of snakes. He can't stand to even look at them right now. And I still love it.
Yeah, my daughter, she used to help me. And then it got to the point where, because she loves the animals too. But she's got to the point now, especially, once she got into her later teenage years and high school years, it wasn't quite as fun to come in here and help Dad. Okay, the room's hot. It's 86 degrees in here all the time. It's hot in there. And, she just got to that point where she didn't want to help as much. So then I started, okay, well, I'll pay you to help me. That was all fine and good until she got a real job. And then she's like, nah. She's like, she'll come in here and she'll open tubs and she'll look at everything and she'll help me like water or something. But, hatchling seasons, when you'll catch her in here most, because she'll come in here and just like start pulling tubs, looking at the babies. And, but yeah, I don't have that little helper anymore. When she was younger, she was motivated and, loved helping Dad. And at one point she wanted to do this with me until she saw me get bit. she saw me get tagged by a very large 3,000 gram female, and it was a food response bite. So she bit and wrapped. And as soon as she saw that and saw how much, it was not a bad bite. It just happened to be where she bit me. There was so much blood. She's like, yeah, I don't want to do that now. I was like, it's just part of it. It doesn't hurt. Like, I've never had a ball python bite hurt. I've had them where they've like, it's hurt to get them off of me, because, they didn't want to come off, and, I end up hurting myself more than they hurt me. But, the bites don't hurt. Now, I don't like getting bit. I'll avoid a bite any chance I can, but you can't avoid them all.
Yeah.
No. I say that. I say that Jennifer has never been bitten. I'm like, how do you breed snakes and you've never been bit? And that's why she wouldn't help me clean my snakes this weekend, because she's like, your snakes are mean. I was like, you just don't know my snakes. They're not mean. You just don't know them.
So you're working with
than mine.
So you're working with the super gravel or a super asphalt? You had mentioned that.
I have a super gravel.
So what is your plan?
That's the paint is the plan for that one, to put the yellow belly paint with her, so that I can produce the highway head paints. That way I can hopefully produce, I do want to eventually produce like super gravel paints. I think that would be an insane combo. And even highway paints or whatever, but she's going to go to him. She's as of right now, she's ready to go. But I'm not in a huge hurry to start pairing her. I'm definitely going to wait till that male is ready. Because he is what I want to put with her. Because I really want, because, worst case scenario, anything that doesn't come out as a highway is going to come out as a gravel, since she is a super. And so that's what I want to do, is hit those gravel het paints.
So what is what's the gene that's the root of your collection? What do you have the most of?
Hypo.
Really?
So for a recessive project, actually any project at all, hypo is, I'm going to say 40% of my collection.
Wow.
I produce a lot of hypos. I do have other recessives. I do have clowns. I do have pieds, ultramels. I have the paint stuff. Like this year, a lot of my pairings are building block pairings, holdbacks, because I'm doing a lot of double het stuff this year. Doing double het hypo clown, clown pied, hypo pied, ultramel clowns, ultramel hypos. Ultramel clowns. Like I'm doing several double het pairings this year, because I've held off on doing the double hets until now, which I really should have already started it, but I was every time I do a pairing, I'm looking for a specific animal, and I've hit most of them. I haven't hit them all, but I've decided this year is the year I need to go ahead and start getting my double hets going, because I don't mind buying stuff like that, but a lot of times I like to produce my collection, and so there are things that I'll buy that I don't have, but if it's something that I have, I like to try to make it myself. If I don't hit on once they're ready, if I don't hit on the double visuals, I might end up just buying something to pair the hets to or whatever to be able to do that a little bit easier. But because I don't do this for a living right now, I don't mind taking the long road to get to a project animal that I really want to hit.
So what kind of hypo are you working with?
Hypo is good. You mean like Orange Ghost?
Yeah.
Or just like different genetics in general? So everything's Orange Ghost hypo, but now if we're not talking hypo, outside of the hypo, I guess that would be my main recessive projects that I work with. But the biggest thing I have that I work with is Blackhead
Pastel.
I'm a huge Blackhead fanatic. Oh yeah, I love pastel. Like I've got 600 pastels over there just waiting to breed.
Oh, wow.
No, but Blackhead is by far my favorite genetic, regardless of recessive, incomplete, dominant, no matter what. And I have quite a bit of it. I have produced quite a bit of it. That animal that John was talking about earlier that he had videoed in Arlington back in 2018 was a Blackhead combo that at the time hadn't seen it produced, and so I wasn't giving out the genetics on it. And actually, I produced a handful more this year, and so that's
Wow.
the one that you videoed. He fired this one, or wherever the camera's at. So, and that's just a Blackhead Mystic Inchy Ringer het hypo.
Damn.
So he looks just like the sire.
I want to know about your tattoos.
My tattoos?
Yeah. Do you have one
What
artist
tattoos?
that you work with? The
I
one on your right butt cheek that I heard about.
Oh, that's the one that says your name.
Oh.
Literally
You spelled
says
my
your
middle
name.
wrong. You spelled my middle name wrong. No.
So
they
now
look good.
I do have
you
one.
have okay, cool.
So yeah, I do have one artist now that is doing all my work. So I started. So this sleeve is completely done, and I got it started. I started it in 2000. I started it 2.5 years ago. Took a year to get it finished. Exactly to the day, a year to finish that sleeve. And then I took some time off, and because like the whole upper part of the arm, the upper part of the arm is Nemo themed. There's Squirt from Nemo. So the whole upper part is like the Nemo theme. The bottom part is the Phoenix with the flames. Took a year to finish. I took some time off, and then and this was a cover up. This whole top piece, and like my artist is so amazing that because the piece was from here to here, and he covered the whole thing. And you can't even tell there's anything there.
So what'd you cover?
I covered up no, I never did that. Thank goodness. No, I covered up a really big skull. The skull itself wasn't bad. It was the artist. Had it done at a tattoo convention here, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. And it was one of the guys that actually won one of the seasons of Ink Master did the tattoo. And so the tattoo itself the skull was really good, but he put this blue and black background on there that I wasn't expecting. And that was a cover up as well. Well, then the cover up didn't even cover up the old tattoo. And so the skull itself looked good, but then all of a sudden here's these feathers like running right down the middle of it, and it looked like crap. And he had this funky background. It's like I absolutely hated it. And so finally, my artist, he's like, I can cover that for you and make it look good. And I was hesitant for so long. Finally, we started with my forearm, and then once he did my forearm, I was like, literally put the squirt on there as the focal point, and you have artistic freedom to do whatever you want with the rest of the arm. And it turned out amazing. You can't tell it to cover up. This arm, I've got a Reaper that he's going to fix. The tattoo's really good, but the guy that did it was so heavy-handed that it caused my skin to pit. And so I've got a lot of like blank spots where all the ink just like came out because like it looked like I had some sort of flesh-eating bacteria after I got it. It took a long time to heal. So he's going to fix that, but we're actually working on the forearm now. You can't really tell the detail on the camera, but we're doing this forearm now. It's actually a triple cover-up because I had two small ones and then a wristband. He's completely covering it. Like he covered two of them, and you can't even tell they were ever there. And so I actually went in last Tuesday and had the hourglass put on my arm, and this is my colorful arm, and this is literally black and gray theme, skulls, reapers, father time, that kind of stuff on that arm.
Why?
Why? Because I love skulls.
Okay.
It's a guy thing, Marita. You wouldn't understand.
Yes.
So what inspired your brother to get into?
Yeah, why Nemo? Too?
No. I like the Nemo. Your brother was in did a tattoo removal for a while, you said?
He did. Yes, he did. He actually removed a couple of them off my forearm so I could, get this done. Which, I had those removed because they were, when I first started getting tattoos, I was literally like the day I turned 18. My mom took me to get my first tattoo. And growing up, grew up around the Banditos, the biker gang. My mom's ex-husband was a Bandito. And so I grew up around motorcycles. I grew up around tattoos. Well, as a stupid teenager, I thought the old school biker tattoos were just badass. And so, I'd known the artist that he did probably 15 tattoos on me. And when I was young, man, these things are amazing. But they didn't age. They didn't age at all. Within like 2 years, they look like absolute crap. And so here I am with all these like random tattoos, just like here and here and here and here, just all over my body. And it's like, man, this looks super trashy. And so my brother, he had worked offshore drilling for almost 20 years. He was a supervisor, big wig for one of the companies out of Houston, and he traveled all over the world. Well, he retired from that and decided to open up a tattoo laser removal business because he actually has more than me. He's fully shirted, wow. Stomach, back, arms, everything. And I think one of his legs is almost completely done. But he was wanting to get rid of a bunch of his old ones like mine that we got from the same artist. And somehow he got into it and he started his own business. And he had that going for a few years. And so I went and had, a few removed so I could eventually do a sleeve on this arm. And I was going to actually have everything like on this arm and then the forearm removed. And then one day he just decided he didn't enjoy that anymore. He wanted to do something different. I was like, well, crap. And but my artist now is badass and he can literally cover up damn near anything. And so I've just been letting him, I told him what I wanted for a focal point on this arm that I'm having worked on right now. And I told him, put the focal piece on there. I gave him exactly what I wanted. And I trust him enough as an artist, and he knows me well enough as a person, I gave him free artistic reign to do whatever he wants on my arm. He's going to fix this piece right here. And he's just, and now he does like with the hourglass. He's like, okay, I want to put an hourglass on there, but he's like, I don't want to just pick an hourglass or draw something. He's like, I want something that you're going to, you're going to want. So I went through and I did, looked at so many of these hourglasses and kind of put a conglomeration of ones that I liked. So we just kind of put them all together, and he created what I liked. And so, but that's what I did with my sleeve is the Phoenix, because the color sleeve, every bit of it has meaning to it. This one, the black and white sleeve, I like skulls. So have fun, put a bunch of skulls, reapers, father time. All I care about is it looking really kick ass. But my other sleeve, it has legit meaning behind it. And so the focal point on that was on the forearm was the Phoenix. And then, I told him, I said, I want my daughter's name somewhere on my forearm. I don't know how I want it. I don't know what else I want. I was like, do whatever you want, because I trust him that much. His work is that good. And he's like, well, you've got a huge Phoenix. The Phoenix covers my whole forearm. And it's coming out of a flaming heart. He's like, why don't you just do like a whole flame theme arm? I was like, dude, that'd be cool to have flames, as long as they're done right. So many flame tattoos look like crap.
Yeah.
And so we did, like, my whole forearm is the Phoenix coming out of the flaming heart, and it's a realistic heart. It's not like a little. It's a what do they call it? Realism. And then the rest of the arm is literally flames all the way up. And now I'll tell you, that sucks so bad because they're realistic flames. And so he would start off, he did the outline, which outline doesn't hurt. You basically don't even feel it. But then he'd go in with the black. Okay. Cool. Well, all of a sudden he'd go over that with red and then orange and then yellow and then white, all in the same sitting on the same piece of skin. Well, after two colors, the skin underneath is hamburger meat, and you basically want to, pass out or cut his nuts off because it hurts so damn bad. So if you get, when you get into the intricacies of some tattoos, that have the multiple color palettes on top of each other, it's painful. It is very, very painful. And then, after we completely finished the sleeve or the forearm piece, I told him I wanted Squirt from Nemo because that's my daughter's nickname. And Nemo came out, I think, like 3 months after she was born. And she was, growing up, that was her favorite cartoon. Squirt was always her favorite character, even though, that was her nickname beforehand. And she had these big brown eyes when she was born. And so she was like the perfect little turtle. And so to this day, Squirt is still her favorite character of all time. And so I told him, I said, I want the Squirt, on up top. And I said, just make it a water theme, do whatever you want. So basically it turned into an entire Finding Nemo theme without Nemo. There's no Nemo on there. I've got the starfish, and I've got Bubbles, and I've got Jacques, and I've got I don't know, we've got Bruce, we've got the little purple fishes. I got everything but Nemo and Dory on there. I've got it wraps around in my shoulder, and I've got Peach the starfish, coming off my shoulder. And so it's the whole sleeve has meaning. And then so my daughter's Squirt's my daughter's favorite, and she graduated on Tuesday. I love this kid. I mean, I don't know if y'all saw my post that I posted with her graduating this week, but she Snapchatted me on her way to graduation, and I could tell she had her cap on as she was driving. I could tell she had decorated it. So I asked her, and I hadn't seen her at all that day because I'd been at work. And I was like, "So did you decorate your cap?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, let me see it." She's like, "You'll see it at graduation." And I was like, "Okay, weird. She doesn't ever really hide anything from me. She's usually excited about stuff like that because she's very creative, very artistic." And so So it was an outside graduation at the football stadium, so you couldn't really see anything. I mean, you could see them walking up to the stage. If you wanted to see her face, you had to look at the big Titantron. So I couldn't really get a good picture of of what her cap was. So as soon as she gets out, she immediately, as soon as she sees me, she turns around and she'd done the whole Nemo theme on her cap that had the squirt on it. Said, "See you later, dudes." And it, like, you can see it on my Facebook, and it's like the kid is so artistic and creative, and it's just like that cap right there. I don't care who you are, when you graduated, how cool your cap was. That cap will beat your cap every time. It's so bad. And I told her, I said, if you ever think you're going to throw that away, I was like, you're not going to say, because if you don't keep it, I will personally keep that thing forever, just because it is so cool.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
So how many gargoyle geckos do you produce every year? Sorry, I'm kind of reptile.
No, you're cool. Actually, I don't produce them yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have them. And like everything else, I like to get my animals young and work my way into it. Problem I found with that is with geckos, that's not really necessarily the best way to go about it, because you don't know the sex until they're like a certain age or a certain size. And so I've ended up, everything I've gotten that I've grown up has turned out to be a male. And I'm just like, crap. And so like my lychee geckos, I did the same thing with that, bought 2 hatchling lychee geckos, and they both turned out to be female. Crap. And so I ended up getting rid of one of the females to get a breeder size. Once they were, because once the females started laying eggs, the infertile eggs, I knew it was time. They were ready to start breeding. So when that happened, it's like, okay, I want to produce these. I'm going to have to either buy a male, or I'm going to have to trade one of these females off for one, because breeder size lychee male is not cheap,
Right.
No.
by any stretch. And so I figured, right now, especially with it being my daughter's senior year in high school, I was like, I never realized how expensive seniors could be. I figured it was in the best interest to go ahead and just trade a lychee for a lychee. I actually sent the female to one friend, and then I picked the lychee up from the male from another friend. Big swap or whatever. But I actually got my first clutch from them 2 days before Arlington.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully I'll be able to start doing those. I will be purchasing more gargoyle. I'll be purchasing females, known females, and they may not be breeder size, but ones that I can, that are sexed. And same with the lychees. I'll start buying more lychees that I know that are a little more mature. That way they're sexed, because I don't want to run into spending $1,000 or $2,000 on a couple more animals, and they both come out the same sex, and I don't need that sex, or I need one of each, and I end up with 2 males or 2 females. That's already burned me twice with the lizards.
Right.
So I've already learned a very valuable and expensive lesson that way. So I will get animals that are more mature, and I might even buy a couple of breeders here and there, just to kind of get my feet wet in it. But I think it'd be cool once the lychees start hatching and producing. But they're like the snakes. They take 3 years, 4 years. It takes, I guess, a little longer, 3 or 4 years before the lychees are actually ready to start breeding good. So I think mine were 3 years old before they started laying the infertile clutches. So.
So are you working with any other species of snake, or just ball python?
Just ball pythons. I do kind of want to get back into some of the boas. I'm not going to do that until I have more room, though, just because I am so limited on space. Like, I literally have in my room one tub that does not have an animal in it. And right now, that's basically my tub I use for when I'm cleaning. the animal gets rotated into that tub, clean its tub, whatever, until, I get a female that's outgrown what she's in and gets transferred. But I do want to get into some of the boas. Lindsay Noble of Noble Reptiles, she produces some amazing, amazing boas. So I figured, I might get into a couple of those. I thought about getting into some of the hognose stuff. I've never really messed with colubrids, boas, and constrictors and pythons and stuff. I'm comfortable with. Colubrids, I've never really dealt with them. I would like to venture into them. I won't do green tree pythons or anything like that. I've been tagged by an emerald tree boa. I don't ever want to go through that again. Ever.
The last video of a green tree python that I put out, people said, "Oh my gosh, you touched that thing. Do you ever get bitten?" And I'm like, I got bitten in the video. It's really fast. And they're sons of guns. But I like it.
Was it a baby or was it an adult?
Mostly grown. Do you remember?
It's been a while since we've had chondros.
Yeah, a little bit since we've had.
I never dealt with those, but I had a
they have
I had
very
an
long
ATV.
teeth. Not retic long, but long.
An ATV in the middle of a live. I was holding it up and I was like, this guy used to be the biggest fucking asshole, and now he's super calm, and I'm really excited about it because I worked so hard for this. And right after I said that, like, I had him up right next to my head. I don't know what it was.
No,
he just went and he hit my head and he just latched on and stayed there. And I'm just sitting there continuing to talk like, well, I guess I just made an ass out of myself. Fuck it.
The last time we had rainbow boas, I was showing some kids and I said, "Step back, this snake might bite me, but it's okay." And so I go to reach in there and it's being a little bit testy and I'm like, just get it. So I go and this snake's just like, and blood's just pouring and they're like, ah! I'm like, it's okay. Look how their scales are sparkly.
Look at how pretty they are.
And they're just like, oh, you're bleeding. I was like, it doesn't hurt. It's fine. But look at the sparkle. Here, let me show you in natural light. I don't think you're seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah. So I do want to eventually get into other species and other genuses. It's just more of a space thing for me right now. But I do, and I wouldn't mind getting into a couple of the Borneos. Some bloods. It's just I wouldn't mind having a nice variety. I don't know if I would want to technically breed every species, but I would like to have some to just, to work with. But then there are some that I would really like to breed. Because I really would like to get into some of the nicer boas and breed those the right way, not like I did 20 years ago.
Well, I will say this. It definitely takes a lot more time, focus, and energy to have a diverse collection, but it's so rewarding to us. I mean, we can't just work with one thing. I think I would burn out. I don't know about him, but honestly, even the stuff I love the most, if that's all we worked with, I think, not to say I'd get bored, but there'd be days where I was like, ugh, I don't know if I want to go do all that right now. But it is so much harder to manage everything properly when you have animals from 6 different continents in one room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we don't.
And right now, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we don't just keep snakes. We also do frogs and small mammals, and we do monitors and crocodilians and
tarantulas.
Well, yeah, obviously. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I love your video. It's getting more and more like love lately, like off of some of the viral websites where you're opening up the egg sac. I've seen it like 5 times the last. Yeah, it came back around because I've seen it like 5 different times on like the Lad Bible site in the last like month, and it's like
That's
you know, lady opens like thousands of tarantulas. Like, hey, I know her, and so I like that video's like and like it's getting like 1 million views here and 2 million views there, and it's like just going around again, and I think it's pretty cool. But for me right now, honestly, because I do, I run ambient temperature. Like right now, I'm sweating my balls off. I'm sitting here. My room is, yes, I know, right? It's like 55% humidity in here, and it's 86 degrees.
So and they're just
I've run
right now.
the chair.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna tell you whether I have pants on, below the shirt. I'm not,
There we go.
I may have pants on, I may have shorts on, I may not even have nothing on. I ain't gonna tell you. But let's just say it is.
And I saw before the show, but I'm not gonna let it go.
It's warm in here, and so normally I keep it around 84, 85. We did get pretty warm today, which did kind of up my temperature a little bit, but I do have supplemental air conditioning to kind of cool it down. So it's actually, I don't know. Oh, I lied. It's back down to 84 to where it's usually at. But still, sitting in here and like working in here, because it takes me a few hours. Like when I do like my deep cleans and everything, it takes a few hours to clean this many animals. It's a good way to lose a few pounds quick. And I can always stand to lose a few pounds. Like it gets warm, and so right now, honestly, my room isn't conducive for a lot of species, just because of the heat. Because some of the animals require, a lower temperature.
Right.
Like bloods wouldn't really do well in here. If I kept them on the bottom of the racks, they'd probably do well, but the bottom of the racks are the exact same temperature as the top of my racks. I've got multiple thermometers in here to monitor every aspect of the room, because I don't want, because I've seen people that have ambient rooms that their last 2 tubs is 10 degrees cooler than it is the top of the rack.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I make sure I've got plenty of airflow and everything else in here to keep, whatever temperature it is on the top of my rack, it's the same on the bottom. And occasionally, like during the winter time, it'll fluctuate a degree or 2, just because the heater, running the oil filled heater, it's having to work harder and to heat the room. So with that heat rising, the cool air settling on the bottom, even though it's still circulating, I might have 1 or 2 degree temperature difference during the winter time. But like right now, we're getting into the mid 80s, low 90s. I actually my AC will actually kick on in here so that it won't get too warm. So
Nice.
it's just not conducive for a lot of species. I could do a few in here, but right now I've got it set up for the ball pythons.
Right.
And now if I decided to get a whole bunch of thermostats and everything, I could easily drop the temperature in here 8 degrees and bring in several more species. But the size room I'm in right now, it's honestly easier to do ambient than it would be to have 3 or 4 Herpstat 4s or 6s running up there. So because it's literally I've got two oil filled radiator heaters in here on external thermostats, and it does perfect. And it's surprisingly, it doesn't affect my electric bill that much either. So
Good deal.
people are like, "Oh my God, you run ambient, your electric bill's got to be stupid expensive." When I moved into the house, I bought my house 2 years ago in July. And when I first bought the house, all my animals were at my brother's. And like I had to wait like 3 weeks before I could bring them over. Well, my first electric bill, I was thinking, okay, well that's not bad. It's going to suck when I have to start running an ambient room, because I actually set the room up for the most part before I brought my animals over, trying to keep a steady, make sure everything can stay steady in here temperature wise. And so then I started getting my electric bills with running my animals, and I think it's like a $6 difference.
Oh wow.
That's nothing.
But I did when I bought the house.
Okay.
I had brand new windows put in and everything. That way I could, windows are like the best investment ever because one of the best ways to insulate your home. The house was insulated good, but the windows were old and crappy, and you could almost feel a draft. And so I knew if I'd have kept those windows, it would have been really, really difficult to maintain an ambient environment. And now it's like I still monitor my temperatures regularly, just because I'm very protective of my animals. But I know, like right now, if I was to leave right now, because in 2 weeks I'm going to Alabama for a week. I don't have to worry about, is my room going to overheat, or is going to get too cold in my room. It's been set up. Even if I was to have a power surge, my electricity goes off and comes back on. It's set up in a way that I don't have to worry about it.
Good deal.
So,
we're always fighting that.
My last house, it was really hard, and the snake room there was 3 times the size of what I have now, and I had it basically set up the same way, but the house had old 60 style single pane windows, and so I had to put up insulation foam board insulation up on the windows. Basically had to insulate the whole walls with that foam board. It was an expensive nightmare to be able to run ambient, because during the summertime it would get really hot in there, and I'd have to run supplemental air conditioning all the time. But during the wintertime it gets so freaking cold that I'm running 3 different heaters, and it's barely keeping it at 83 degrees. Wow. And so now I've got everything set up really well, and I literally have nothing. I don't worry about it when I leave. If I go to Arlington, my brother will come over and take care of my rodents. Do I need to take care of snakes? No. Do I need to check on them? Nope. They're good. What about the temperature? It's good. So I've worked hard to maintain and be able to maintain a good, steady environment for them.
Sorry, somebody's asking what venomous strap we use. Well, I got bit by a rattlesnake a couple years ago, so it looks like it's backwards. This is a venom lock. You can buy that at tongs.com, and it's a wonderful piece of equipment if you are in a world where there's venomous snakes, even outside. It's good to have one just sitting in your truck. You can
also order them off of Amazon. So if you don't remember the name of the website, just go on to Amazon. They're $20 wherever you buy them. It's reusable. They're lightweight. It's antiseptic. You can just clean it with Lysol or bleach. We were the first human trial. It works. Crotalus.
What is it?
It's called a venom lock, and what it is a compression device that allows blood flow into wherever you get bit. But what it does is it locks up the venom in one area so that to give you time to get treatment. When I got bit, it took about 45 minutes for me to start getting anti-venom. And in that time, my arm was not swollen up until I started getting the anti-venom. We took the venom lock off, and my arm swelled all the way up to my shoulder. So what it does is it delays the symptoms of the bite long enough for you to seek medical treatment.
Oh, okay.
So, and being in Texas,
a sense, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In a sense, just from a medical background, JD is also in a background, like in the medical background, but it makes it creates basically. Well, yeah, it creates a vacuum, and it gives you compartment syndrome at a minor level, essentially, so that the venom can't flow freely. It doesn't do it in such a profound way that it would cut off the limb and make that portion of the limb necrotic. Like if you put on a tourniquet for too long, what you do is you essentially kill off that lower portion of the limb, right? This doesn't put on the same amount of pressure, but it holds it in the same spot. It's not a tourniquet.
That's
right.
That's one benefit.
That's what I'm trying to say.
You can keep it on. And the ER doc, that's also a toxicologist that designed this. First, it was kind of a rectangular shape. And then, so this was the second this was the second version. They actually make it in an oval in case you do get bitten with something with necrotic venom, so they can just remove and suture close the wound. They can remove the whole area if they have to.
It just what it does is delays. It delays the onset of the venom.
So how long do you have to get that put on in place to allow it to delay the onset?
Well, for the most part, you've got a little bit of time, meaning a couple of minutes, because people don't realize that the lymph system, which is basically everything but your vein, your vessels, your blood, and your arteries, your veins and your arteries, it takes a little bit of time to spread into your body. But what happens is that after a minute or two, your body starts sending the blood there, and then start bringing that poison into the system, and that's what causes the necrosis, the neurological
failure.
Yeah, all that stuff.
So there were large mammal studies done on pigs before it ever went onto the market, and I think they waited 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 10 minutes to apply it. And the animals, and do you remember what kind of venom they used? 2 or 3 different types.
They used
of venom.
coral snake, eastern diamondback, and I think western diamondback.
So anyway, the animals that had the venom lock basically walked around, ate, they did everything that they would normally do. The animals that didn't have the venom lock suffered symptoms that you would typically see. Then when they so I think they kept the venom lock on the snakes for up to 24 hours.
The pigs.
Oh yeah, on the snake bitten pigs, which I don't know if they injected them or had them bite them. But once they took it off, the venom went into full action. So on the pigs, it worked. I mean, I think it was up to 24 hours that they had the venom lock on without any circulatory problems. And it still kept that venom blockulated within the device. Yeah, some people don't believe in it, but we've used it, and it did work very well. He got life flighted to Lubbock, and then they essentially just discharged him a few hours after because they said you're actually...
There's you can't even tell where I was bitten, which was lucky. It was about an 16 to 18 inch snake, and it was in the wintertime, and I was fully envenomated because they had to life flight me out because they were afraid of compartment syndrome. I got 12 vials of antivenom and spent a week with my hand so swollen I couldn't close it.
Now, was this an animal that you owned, or was it a wild animal?
It was outside in December in Roswell, New Mexico.
Under a wood pile.
Damn. What kind of snake was it?
Western diamondback. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a ball python.
Yeah.
Don't scare me like that.
Yeah,
It was
the
emerald tree boa.
Yeah.
Right. Those are fun. Not.
Well, this has been a really good one.
This was great.
Yeah.
James, thank you so much. A lot of good talk. Definitely something that we'll have to retouch because I feel like there's a lot more that could come out.
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate you having me on.
We want to follow up this fall and see how your season was and find out if your paint actually was able to do anything this year, if you think it's going to be next year. Sounds like you're working with some amazing stuff.
So
I appreciate it.
Everybody that's been here on the chat. It's been quite a few people. Pardon me if I butcher any of your names. Is it not Lou Exotics, Blackheart Exotics? Of course, Snakenstein's been on here. Donovan B, Elite Exotics, DJ Reptiles, Derek's Reptiles, Celtic Balls, J&G Reptiles. Iron Dog came on.
We had a whole slew of people come in and out.
Yeah,
it was
Wrapped
awesome.
Around Reptiles, Ridiculous Reptiles, 808 ball pythons, it looks. Danny Cadena, lots of people. My Animal House, Jamie Bearded Balls. So a lot of them were just kind of chiming in and talking about some different stuff. So big thanks to everybody. So tell us how people can find you, and then we'll link all your information in the description box.
Already.
Yeah, my personal page, James Durling on Facebook. I have business page, Yellow Rose Exotics, on Facebook and Instagram. So
Awesome. Ball and Chain Constrictors just came on and said, "What's up?" So I don't know if that was to you or everybody or what, but awesome. This was a great one. Yeah, you need to come down if you're interested. Do some herping with us.
Oh, yeah. Anytime.
All right.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, you're welcome anytime.
All right.
So,
we appreciate y'all. James, thank you very much.
John, thank you. Rita, JD, appreciate it.
Yep.
You
We're
too.
still hanging out. Talk to you later. Good
All
night,
right, sounds good,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
Good night.